Today I'm going to share with you how you can apply and blend your makeup using the blush bronzer brush and how you can blend using your Perfector sponge. First, let's talk about the Saint brushes. Not all brushes are created equal. So when you're talking to your client, make sure if they say, oh, I don't need brushes, I already have brushes. But do they have brushes that are specific for cream makeup? Not all brushes are created for cream makeup. So the second thing is they might say, oh, well, that brush is kind of expensive. Well, if you compare brushes, they're all expensive. The one great thing about the Saint brush is that it's double-ended. So you're getting 2 for 1. Even tell them, if they go research brushes, the brush will tell you in the description whether or not it's designed for liquid, powder, or cream. So if they just want to get one brush, I always recommend this brush because they can purchase it in a collection with the Bella bronzer. So this is a great deal because it's like getting the bronzer for what, $6 maybe? So I always say, if you're going to buy a brush and it's just one brush, get this brush, get it with the Bella bronzer. Also, if they're getting this brush anyway with like a few other ones, I always recommend it to get with the collection because everybody should have some. I think Bella, not everybody uses Bella, but I think it's the one that's sort of like universal, looks beautiful on everyone. So this is always my recommendation because you can contour with your finger if you don't want to contour with this brush, but I'm going to show you how you can contour with this brush. So it's called the Blush and Bronzer brush because this was a great side and a great density to apply your blush. Whereas this side was nice, big, and fluffy and domey. So you could dust your face very lightly with bronzer to control the amount of bronzer that you're applying. Well, we've also discovered that this end is also a great end to use to apply your highlight because it picks up just the right amount of highlight that you're not going to have a heavy coverage, but you're not giving yourself a very light coverage. So when you use it, you also want to stipple or tap the product on your face in little bitty, let's call them baby step motions, okay? You see, I'm not smashing the bristles onto my face when I stipple. I'm just lightly touching the surface of my face, or in this case, my hand. But let's get started on the face. So using that same sort of light tapping motion, I'm going to tap into my main highlight. So you can see I hardly have any on my brush. And I'm just going to start tapping it lightly on my face. Again, notice I'm not smashing it. I'm just lightly tapping it to the areas that my main highlight is applied. Just like so. For the purpose of trying to shorten my videos, because sometimes I can get long-winded, I'm going to do some of this off camera, but I'm still just lightly tapping all over. Well, all over where my main highlight's going. I always do my main highlight first, but as you know, it doesn't matter. You could use your contour first. So you can use this brush for your contour, what you need to do, because you certainly don't want to use it this way. It's just going to put too much area on contour on your face. So what you could do is you could smash your bristles to where they sort of become, you know, skinny, almost the shape of the detail brush. And you could tap into your product, your contour, just like so. and then apply it in your contour line. Sometimes I find this is a little more difficult for the beginning or the beginner with Saint. So I always also recommend just applying it with your finger. Just like so. And then you could take the brush then, still kind of squishing it, and just sort of in an upward motion, kind of feather it up. And you're sort of blending it in at that stage too. I'm going to leave this side because I'm going to show you how I use the Perfector sponge to blend. So this side I'm going to do everything with the brush. This side I'll blend with the Perfector. And then same thing with the forehead. This area, you don't need to get so small because you're contouring a much larger area. Same with kind of under the chin. So you don't really have to smash, even though I still would smash it. You don't have to be so concerned with smashing it so much. And then I like to drag the product down my neck some. And again, I'm feathering it down. I'm not smashing it down really hard. I'm just feathering it down. And again, this side, finger. Now this is a little harder to blend down, so you could tell them to do that, not with the sponge. Although I still use the sponge to pick up excess, because that is the other thing the sponge is great for. The Perfector sponge will pick up any excess makeup that you have on your face. So we're going to do that at the end though. And again, put with my finger up here. And now I'll do my nose off camera. You surely can't really do your nose with, I guess you could. Well, let's try. I like a more pronounced line, so always recommend this. And again, you just sort of blend it down the sides of your nose, and I'll show you this in a minute. Now I'm going to do a little bit of the brightening highlight. I'm going to apply this with my finger. I'm probably putting it a little, okay. Now, again, I'm just going to tap it out. And it's blending while I'm tapping. So on the other side, I'll sort of use this, my finger and the sponge. And you also want to remind them when they're using their fingers, use the middle finger or the ring finger, because you're going to get a much lighter tapping on your face with those fingers. It's not the prominent pointer finger that you're always using, and you're always going to have more control. So you're going to do a little heavier handed, and you don't want to pull the skin under your eyes. You may be young and you don't realize right now because you still have a lot of elasticity, but you don't want to be constantly pulling on that skin as you age, because you're losing elasticity and you're causing wrinkles. You don't want to do that. And it's definitely too big to go down the center of your nose. So I just lightly tap it with my finger. I'm going to put a little there in my Cupid's bow and a little bit right there. And maybe a little dot right up here. And then again, lightly tapping. Okay, so now what the brush was actually designed for, applying the blush. So, oh, I don't want to use that. I want to use the new Renaissance. So, I'm going to pull it out. Again, I'm going to lightly tap my product, okay? It's barely on there. And then I'm just going to apply it right above that contour. And you see how I can add more if needed. Okay. This side, I'll just kind of tap in with my finger. Okay. This is also the big fluffy end is what you're going to blend with. But let's say you want to add a little bronzer. So my tip for you is if you have 2 bronzers, which I do in my palette here, Bella, put them side by side so you can swirl around the 2 and get a nice little amount of bronzer on your brush. Now, I like to do this before, but I forgot, but no big deal because it's cream and we can do it after. I'm just going to dust it across my forehead. I'm going to swirl a little back in it. I'm going to come along there, you know, that high part of my cheek. I like to add a little along the jawline. A little on the chin. And a little dusting on the tip of my nose. Again, the high points where the sun would naturally kiss our skin. So I just have a tissue. I'm going to kind of dust it on the tissue, and now I'm going to start blending by dusting and swirling. Always in an upward motion. By your contour, that is. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to use this. You want to use it damp. You don't want it too wet. You don't want it too dry because it'll take off your makeup. So run it under some water until it doubles in size. And then I squeeze all the water out that I can in the sink. And then I take a paper towel or a clean wash cloth, and I just squeeze it, squeeze it, squeeze it, squeeze it. Again, you want it slightly dampened. And I always recommend to my clients to do this before they even start their makeup. So while it's sitting there waiting for them, it also sort of dries a little then. Okay, I added a little more brightening over here to the outer and inner corner of my eye. And now that it's just slightly dampened, I'm going to take the longer side with the point up in the corner, and just like I did with my brush, I'm just lightly tapping my face. And as I'm doing that, it's picking up excess makeup, as it's also sort of pushing the makeup into my skin, and by default, it's blending it. And I like to use this over blending with the brush because I find that I'm heavy-handed and I can control this more. I like to see a little bit of that contour here, whereas I blend with the brush, I find that I blend a little too heavy-handed. I'm going to go along the side of my nose with that pointy end still up toward the inner part of my eye. But down here, you can use like the bottom, the big end. Up here, you can use that bigger end. And see how I didn't swipe, I just, again, lightly, it's almost like bouncing on your face. And y'all, it is so soft. I make homemade marshmallows and I always compare this to a homemade marshmallow. Look at that. Blended. It's just that easy. And I still have makeup on my face. I find blending with the sponge and or the big fluffy end of your blush and bronzer brush, neither one of these are going to take off so much of your makeup that you look like you took all your makeup off, because literally that's what you're doing when you use other brushes to blend. So these are definitely a must when it comes to blending. Still going to work on my eye a little bit. I like to use several brushes, so I always encourage my clients to get at least 2 brushes, but sometimes that's a lot for a person. So this is the one I always say, if you're going to get one brush only, get this, get it in the collection with the Bella. So I hope that was helpful, and I hope this week in your challenge, you decide to give this brush a try and your Perfector sponge. There's a reason this was called the Perfector. It is to perfect the outcome of your makeup. So y'all have a good one.